You're at the kitchen counter on a Sunday night, calculator app open on your phone, going through the same monthly ritual you've run for 11 years, adding up what actually left your accounts this month against what you'd budgeted, the way some people check their weight or their step count, a small private accounting nobody else in your life knows you perform. $3,340 out the door this month. Rent equivalent, mortgage payment, groceries, the truck payment that's almost done, a birthday gift for your niece, gas, the modest subscription services you haven't gotten around to canceling. You round it mentally, the way you always do. About $40,000 a year, give or take what the seasons ask of you. That's the number. That's the life. That's what it costs to be you, on paper, in any given 12 months. You close the app. You look out the kitchen window at your truck in the driveway, 8 years old, paid off next spring, and behind it, barely visible in the dark, the shed where you keep a lawnmower you still push yourself because the exercise is free and the gym membership isn't. $40,120,000, as of Friday's close. You know the number because you checked it Friday, the way you check it every Friday, a habit as regular and unremarkable as the Sunday budget review. The gap between what you're worth and what you spend isn't an accident. It's the entire architecture of the life, built one deliberate decision at a time, until the two numbers stopped having anything to do with each other at all. This is the part almost nobody believes when you try to explain it honestly. Living on $40,000 a year isn't a compromise you're making despite the $40 million. It's the actual reason the $40 million exists in the first place, and the two facts aren't in tension. They're the same fact told twice. You didn't set out to build a stealth life. You set out, 20 years ago, at 28, simply trying not to run out of money before you ran out of month, and the habits from that period never really left, because they never stopped working, even after the reason for them technically disappeared. You remember the exact year the shift happened without you noticing it was happening, the year your investments quietly crossed $1 million while you were still driving the same truck, buying the same groceries, living in the same rented duplex you'd been in since your 20s. You didn't celebrate. You barely registered it, because nothing about your actual Tuesday changed, and a number that doesn't change your Tuesday doesn't always feel real, even when it's sitting right there in an account with your name on it. By the time it crossed 10 million, you'd already built an entire identity around a specific kind of invisibility, and changing course at that point would have meant admitting the frugality had never really been about survival anymore. It had become who you were, and unwinding a personality is a much harder thing to do than unwinding a budget. The habits that got you here were never really about money at all. They were about control, about the specific, private satisfaction of a life that costs less than it could, on purpose, every single day. Your accountant, a sharp, patient man named Desmond who's handled your filings for 15 years, has stopped even gently suggesting you loosen up, because he learned, somewhere around year 8, that the suggestion wasn't landing on someone who couldn't afford to spend more. It was landing on someone who'd simply decided, a long time ago, not to. Your cousin Rell is the version of this story that took the opposite road, and watching him over the years has been like watching a documentary about exactly the life he chose not to build. Rell came into serious money around the same time you did, an inheritance from his father's side, somewhere in the 8-figure range, never quite as large as yours but real enough to change a life completely. Within 2 years, Rell had a house with a name for its own driveway gate, 3 cars nobody in the family could keep straight, and a lifestyle that ran, by his own admission at a barbecue once, close to $600,000 a year, most of it flowing out through structures, trusts, property managers, a small staff, designed specifically to make the spending feel effortless. At a family gathering last spring, Rell corners you near the drink cooler, 3 drinks in, doing the thing he does at every gathering now, half bragging and half genuinely searching for something in your reaction. He tells you about a new boat, a bigger one this time, financed through a structure his advisor set up that he doesn't fully understand but trusts because the payments are, basically nothing, relative to what's coming in from the trust each quarter. You nod along. You don't tell him the actual size of your own number, because you never do, and you don't need to, because Rell has never once asked you a direct question about your finances in 15 years of family gatherings. He's too busy narrating his own. Rell built a life that requires the money to keep flowing exactly as projected, forever, without interruption. You built a life that would survive the money disappearing tomorrow and barely notice. Only one of those is actually wealth. The other is just well-funded exposure. 2 years after that barbecue, a bad quarter in the markets and an aggressive expansion of the family trust's real estate holdings collide badly, and Rell has to sell the boat at a loss and quietly let 2 staff members go, a fact you only learned secondhand, from his sister, because Rell himself has never once, in 15 years, told you about a setback directly. You help, once, the way you always do, structured so it never has to be discussed as help at all. Your own life, that same quarter, didn't move an inch. Same truck. Same $3,340 a month. Same shed with the push mower. The bank teller test happens almost by accident, the way most of your best evidence about this whole life tends to arrive. You're at your local branch, a small one, the kind where the same 3 tellers have worked for years and know most regulars by name, waiting to deposit a check from your father's estate, a modest, unremarkable amount, dressed exactly the way you always dress, a work shirt with a company logo faded almost past reading, jeans with real wear at the knee, boots that have seen actual use. The teller who helps you, a younger woman who's only worked there about 8 months, processes the deposit efficiently, pleasantly, the way she'd process anyone's, no particular warmth, no particular coldness, the exact flat courtesy strangers extend to a life that reads as ordinary because it is, on the surface, deliberately ordinary. A regional review happens 2 weeks later, a routine audit of the branch's larger accounts, and the branch manager, a woman you've known for years, mentions to you almost apologetically, the next time you're in, that the new teller had no idea, processing your deposit that day, that she was talking to someone whose portfolio the bank itself manages at a private wealth tier reserved for a handful of clients in the entire regional network. She had no idea, the branch manager says again, half laughing, half genuinely unsettled by it, the way people get unsettled when a system they trust turns out to have a blind spot exactly where you're standing. I almost said something. Then I figured you'd rather I didn't. You tell her she figured correctly. You've told her that, in different words, for years. The whole system is built to recognize wealth by its costume. You never wear the costume, so the system, every single time, defaults to treating you like exactly what you appear to be, which is nobody in particular, which has always been precisely the point. The test that actually matters, the one that tells you the stealth life is working the way you built it to, doesn't come from a stranger at all. It comes from your own daughter, 17 now, home from her first semester at college, sitting across from you at the same kitchen table where you run the Sunday budget review every week of your life. She's just come back from a weekend visiting a roommate's family, a family with real, visible money, the kind that announces itself in every room of the house, and she's quiet for a while over dinner before she finally asks you the question you've been waiting 17 years for someone in your life to ask directly. Dad, she says, are we actually okay? Money-wise? Because Jenna's house was insane, and I know we're fine, but are we, fine, or just fine? You could tell her the truth right there. You've thought, more than once over the years, about exactly this moment, rehearsed different versions of the answer in your head the way some parents rehearse the sex talk, unsure which version does the least damage to the specific personality you've spent her whole childhood trying to build. You tell her the truth, finally, at the kitchen table, quietly, the actual number, watching her face do the thing every face does when it hears a number like that for the first time, a kind of recalibration you recognize because you've watched Rell's whole life run on other people doing exactly this. She's quiet for a long moment. Then she asks the only question that actually matters, the one that tells you, immediately, that whatever you built in this house for 17 years actually worked. Then why do we still only spend $40,000 a year? The wealthiest thing you ever taught your kid wasn't the number. It was the question she asked the second she learned it, not, why don't we spend more? But, why would we? Which is the exact question that separates a stealth life from a performance of humility. You tell her the real answer, the one you've never said out loud to anyone, not Desmond, not Rell, not even, fully, to yourself until this exact moment, that the $40,000 was never a limit. It was a choice, made once, a long time ago, and renewed quietly every single year since, because the version of you that lived on $40,000 was simply a version you liked better than any of the alternatives money could buy you, and once you noticed that, there was never really a reason to change it. You're back at the kitchen counter a few weeks later, calculator app open, running the same Sunday ritual you've run for 11 years, your daughter home for a long weekend, sitting across from you doing her own version of it now, unprompted, adding up her own modest spending from her first semester, comparing it against the small budget the two of you built together before she left for school. She doesn't need to do this. You've told her the real number now. She could, technically, spend without ever checking a total again for the rest of her life. She does it anyway, quietly, the same private accounting you've run every week for 2 decades, and you don't say anything about it, because saying something would turn an inherited instinct into a performance, and the whole point, the entire architecture of this life, was always that it had to be real to actually work. You close your own app. Outside, in the dark, your truck sits in the driveway, older now, paid off years ago, next to the shed with the push mower you still use every Saturday the weather allows. $40 million, give or take, sitting quietly in accounts that fund a life that costs, this year, almost exactly what it cost the year before, and the year before that, and will likely cost, give or take a birthday gift or two, almost exactly the same amount next year, on purpose, for no reason anyone watching from outside this kitchen would ever be able to guess, and every reason, once you understand it from in here. That actually matters.